The Gospel of Matthew tells a remarkable story of faith and doubt. It is the story of Peter walking on water. This event takes place after the miracle of the feeding of the 5,000. Jesus had instructed his disciples to go ahead of him to the other side of the Sea of Galilee. He stayed behind to send the crowds away. As evening fell, the disciples were in a boat, battling a fierce storm on the lake. This is where our story begins. Picture the scene. The sun has set, and darkness has fallen over the Sea of Galilee. The disciples, exhausted from a long day, are rowing their boat across the choppy waters. The wind is howling, and waves are crashing against the sides of the boat, sending spray flying over the terrified men. Fear grips their hearts as they realize they are caught in a fierce storm. They are alone, or so they think. It was Jesus, walking calmly on the turbulent water as if it was solid ground. His presence defied logic, defied nature. The disciples, their eyes wide with a mixture of terror and awe, could only stare in disbelief. It was a sight that would forever be etched in their memories. The storm raged on, but in that moment a glimmer of hope pierced through the disciples' fear. Seeing Jesus, even amidst the storm, stirred something deep within them. Jesus, hearing Peter's plea, responded with a simple yet profound invitation. Come, just one word, but it was enough. It was a word that carried the weight of the universe, a word that transcended the boundaries of human understanding. It was a word that called Peter out of his fear and into a realm of divine possibility. In that moment, the stormy seas seemed to calm, and the chaos around them faded into the background. All that remained was the voice of Jesus and the unwavering gaze of Peter, locked in a moment of spiritual connection that defied the natural order. It was an invitation to step out of the boat, out of his comfort zone, and into the unknown. The boat represented safety, familiarity, and the known world. Stepping out meant embracing uncertainty, facing the elements, and trusting in something greater than himself. It was a call to leave behind the security of the tangible and to venture into the realm of faith, where the impossible becomes possible. Peter's heart raced as he contemplated the enormity of the decision before him. The boat rocked gently beneath his feet, a reminder of the precariousness of his situation. It was an invitation to trust, to believe, to experience the impossible. Trusting in Jesus meant letting go of his own understanding and relying entirely on the divine. It was a leap of faith that required him to surrender his fears and doubts. As Peter took his first step onto the water, he felt a surge of exhilaration mixed with trepidation. The water, which should have swallowed him whole, held firm beneath his feet. Each step was a testament to the power of faith, a journey into the miraculous. Peter, his heart pounding in his chest, knew he had to make a choice. The weight of the decision pressed heavily upon him. He could remain in the boat, clinging to the safety it offered, or he could step out in faith and embrace the unknown. The choice was not just about walking on water, it was about trusting in Jesus with his whole being. It was about believing that Jesus was who he said he was, and that he had the power to sustain him, even in the midst of the storm. Would he stay in the relative safety of the boat, or would he dare to step out in faith and meet Jesus on the water? The boat was a symbol of his old life, a life governed by fear and doubt. Stepping out meant embracing a new reality, one where faith in Jesus was the guiding force. It was a moment of reckoning, a test of his faith and courage. The wind howled around him and the waves crashed against the boat, but Peter's focus was on Jesus. He knew that the only way to truly experience the power of Jesus was to step out in faith. The other disciples, huddled together in fear and amazement, watched Peter intently. They were caught in a whirlwind of emotions, torn between fear for Peter's safety and awe at his boldness. They had seen Jesus perform miracles before, but this was different. This was one of their own, stepping out into the unknown, trusting in Jesus to hold him up. Their hearts were filled with a mixture of dread and hope as they watched Peter take that first tentative step onto the water. They had never heard anyone speak to Jesus like that, let alone ask to walk on water with him. Peter's request was audacious, a bold declaration of his faith and his desire to be close to Jesus. It was a moment that would be etched in their memories forever, a testament to the power of faith and the courage to act on it. The disciples whispered among themselves, their voices filled with a mixture of disbelief and admiration. They marveled at Peter's courage, wondering if they would have the strength to do the same. They knew Peter, his impulsiveness, his tendency to act first and think later. This was the same Peter who had declared his unwavering loyalty to Jesus, only to falter when the moment of truth arrived. Yet in this moment his impulsiveness was a strength. It was his willingness to act, to take that leap of faith, that set him apart. The disciples watched, their hearts in their throats, as Peter took another step onto the water. His determination was palpable, a beacon of hope in the midst of the storm. Part of them probably thought he was crazy, while another part envied his boldness. They were torn between their fear of the unknown and their desire to experience the miraculous. Peter's actions challenged their own faith, forcing them to confront their doubts and fears. They watched with bated breath, their emotions a tumultuous mix of concern and admiration. Peter's boldness was a mirror, reflecting their own insecurities and aspirations. It was a moment of introspection as they grappled with the implications of Peter's faith. They too were afraid, but they couldn't help but wonder what would happen if Peter actually took that step of faith. The possibility of witnessing a miracle was both thrilling and terrifying. They had seen Jesus perform wonders, but this was different. This was one of their own, stepping out in faith, trusting in Jesus to hold him up. The disciples' hearts were a whirlwind of emotions as they watched Peter take that first tentative step onto the water. The air was thick with anticipation as they waited to see what would happen next. Peter's request was not simply a desire to escape the storm or to prove his loyalty to Jesus. It was a profound expression of his need for reassurance, a desperate plea for tangible proof of Jesus' power and presence in his life. The storm was a metaphor for the turmoil within him, a reflection of his inner struggle. Peter needed to know that Jesus was real, that his faith was not in vain. His request was a cry from the depths of his soul, a yearning for a connection that transcended the physical world. It was a cry for reassurance, a desperate plea for tangible proof of Jesus' power and presence in his life. Peter's heart was laid bare, his vulnerability exposed. He needed to know that Jesus was with him, that his faith was not misplaced. The storm raged around him, but his focus was on Jesus. It was a moment of raw honesty, a testament to the depth of his faith and his desire for a deeper connection with the divine. Peter's plea was a reflection of the human condition, a longing for reassurance in the face of uncertainty. He needed to know that Jesus was real, that his faith was not in vain. The storm was a test, a crucible that would either strengthen his faith or shatter it. Peter's heart was a battlefield, torn between doubt and belief. He needed a sign, a tangible proof that Jesus was with him. The storm was a metaphor for the trials and tribulations of life, a reminder that faith is not the absence of fear, but the courage to face it. Peter's journey was a testament to the power of faith, a reminder that even in the midst of the storm, Jesus is with us. Section 2, Stepping Out from Doubt to Belief. For a moment, Peter hesitated. The storm raged around him, the wind whipping at his face, the waves crashing against the boat. He looked at the churning water, then back at Jesus, his gaze steady and reassuring. In that instant, a surge of faith coursed through Peter's being. He knew with a certainty that defied all logic and reason that he had to do this. He had to trust Jesus, even if it meant doing the impossible. Section 3, Walking on Water, a Moment of Triumph. Peter, his eyes fixed on Jesus, continued to walk across the water. Each step was a testament to the power of faith, a victory over the limitations of his human understanding. The storm still raged around him, but it seemed to fade into the background, its fury dwarfed by the miracle unfolding before his very eyes. He was walking with Jesus on the water, and it felt like he could conquer anything. Section 4, The Wind and the Waves, Fear Creeps In. But then, as suddenly as it had come, Peter's focus shifted. He took his eyes off Jesus and turned his attention to the storm raging around him. The wind howled in his ears, the waves crashed and churned, and a wave of fear washed over him. He saw the ferocity of the storm, felt the wind whipping at his clothes, and the reality of his situation hit him with full force. He was standing on water, in the middle of a raging storm, and he was terrified. As fear tightened its grip, Peter felt the impossible happening. He was sinking. The water, once solid beneath his feet, now swirled around his ankles, cold and unforgiving. The wind seemed to snatch his breath away as panic surged through him. His steps, once firm and confident, became clumsy and desperate, his balance lost in the face of overwhelming fear and doubt. In that moment of utter despair, as the icy water closed over his head, a single cry escaped Peter's lips, a desperate plea torn from the depths of his fear. "Lord, save me!" It was a cry for help, a raw and honest admission of his own weakness and his absolute dependence on Jesus. In that moment, all pride, all doubt, all pretense faded away, leaving only the raw, desperate need for salvation. The wind carried his cry across the raging water, a faint whisper against the roar of the storm. Without hesitation, Jesus reached out his hand, his grip strong and sure, and pulled Peter from the churning depths. Lifted from the icy water, Peter gasped for breath, his body trembling with fear and relief. He clung to Jesus as a drowning man clings to a lifeline, his eyes wide with gratitude and shame. He had doubted, he had faltered, but Jesus had saved him. Section 4. Back in the boat, lessons learned. Together, Jesus and Peter walked back to the boat, their steps firm and steady on the surface of the now calmer water. The journey back to the boat was not just a physical one, but also a spiritual one. Each step they took was a testament to faith and trust. Peter, who had moments ago been sinking in doubt, now walked with renewed confidence beside Jesus. The water, which had been a symbol of chaos and fear, now felt like solid ground beneath their feet. It was as if the very elements had been tamed by their faith. As they reached the boat, the disciples, their faces a mixture of awe and relief, helped them aboard. The boat, which had been tossed and turned by the storm, now felt like a sanctuary. The disciples, who had been gripped by fear, now felt a wave of calm wash over them. They had witnessed a miracle, and it had changed them. Their faith, which had wavered in the face of the storm, was now stronger than ever. They realized that with Jesus by their side, they could face any storm. With Jesus back in their midst, the storm seemed to lose its power. The sea, which had been raging moments ago, was now calm and serene. The boat, which had been at the mercy of the waves, now floated peacefully. It was as if the presence of Jesus had brought a sense of order to the chaos. The disciples looked around in amazement, realizing that they had just witnessed the power of faith and the presence of the divine. The wind died down, the waves subsided, and a sense of peace settled over the troubled waters. The transformation was almost magical. The sky, which had been dark and foreboding, was now clear, with the sun breaking through the clouds. The air, which had been filled with the roar of the wind and the crash of the waves, was now filled with a serene silence. It was a moment of tranquility that the disciples would never forget. They had been through a storm, but they had come out of it stronger and more united. As the boat gently rocked on the now placid sea, Peter sat huddled in a corner, his clothes dripping, his hair plastered to his forehead. He was exhausted, both physically and emotionally. The experience had been overwhelming, but it had also been enlightening. He had learned a valuable lesson about faith and trust. He realized that even in the darkest moments, there is always hope. He looked at Jesus, who was now speaking to the disciples, and felt a sense of gratitude. He knew that he had been given a second chance, and he was determined to make the most of it. The storm had passed, but the lessons learned would stay with him forever. Section 5. A question of faith. Why did you doubt? Peter, hearing Jesus' words, felt a fresh wave of shame wash over him. He had seen Jesus perform countless miracles. He had witnessed his power over nature, over sickness, even over death. And yet, when faced with his own fear, he had doubted. He had allowed the storm to overwhelm his faith, to blind him to the truth of who Jesus was. Section 1. The shifting focus from faith to fear. For a few glorious steps, Peter walked on water. The impossible was possible. The unbelievable was real. He was defying gravity, conquering nature, proving the power of faith. It was a moment of pure exhilaration, of absolute triumph. He could feel the wind in his hair, the spray of the waves on his face, yet he remained upright, buoyed by an unseen force. His eyes were fixed on Jesus, his heart filled with a joy he had never known. Section 2. The crushing weight of doubt. Peter begins to sink. As doubt tightened its grip, Peter felt a terrifying sensation. His feet, once solid on the water's surface, began to sink. The icy water, which moments before had felt like solid ground, now yielded beneath him, swirling around his ankles, pulling him down. He tried to regain his footing, to recapture that initial sense of certainty, but it was gone. Section 3. The desperate plea. Lord, save me! As the darkness closed in, a single, desperate cry escaped Peter's lips. Lord, save me! It was a primal scream, torn from the depths of his fear and despair, a raw and honest plea for help. In that moment, all pride, all bravado, all pretense of self-sufficiency vanished. There was only the stark, terrifying reality of his situation. He was drowning, and only Jesus could save him. Section 4. A Saviour's Reach. Jesus to the rescue. Without a word, Jesus reached out his hand, his grip strong and sure, and pulled Peter from the icy depths. Lifted from the water, gasping for breath, his body racked with shivers, Peter clung to Jesus like a man possessed. His eyes, wide with terror only moments before, now brimmed with gratitude and shame. He had doubted, had faltered, had nearly lost his life to his fear, and yet Jesus had saved him. Section 5. Back in the boat. A lesson in humility. Together, Jesus and Peter walked back to the boat, their steps firm and steady on the now calmer water. The wind, as if chastised, had died down considerably, and the waves lapped gently against the hull of the boat. The other disciples, their faces pale with relief, reached out to help them aboard, their eyes wide with a mixture of awe and apprehension. Section 1. The storm silenced, peace after the panic. As soon as Jesus and Peter were safely back in the boat, a profound stillness settled over the Sea of Galilee. The wind, which had been howling like a wild beast just moments before, abruptly died down. The waves, which had been crashing over the boat with such ferocity, softened into gentle ripples. The storm, as if exhausted from its own fury, simply ceased to be. Section 2. Eyes on the Saviour, the key to staying afloat. The silence stretched on, broken only by the gentle lapping of the water against the hull of the boat. Then Jesus spoke, his voice soft but clear, breaking the spell that held the disciples captive. "Why were you afraid?" he asked, his gaze sweeping over their faces, lingering for a moment on Peter. "Did you not believe I was with you?" A wave of shame washed over Peter as he realized the depth of his own weakness. He, who had so boldly declared his faith in Jesus, had doubted. He, who had witnessed firsthand the miracles Jesus had performed, had allowed fear to cripple him. He, who had been given the incredible gift of walking on water, had sunk like a stone the moment his faith wavered. The journey back to shore was a quiet one, the silence punctuated only by the rhythmic splashing of the oars as the disciples, their earlier exhaustion forgotten, rowed with a newfound purpose. The experience they had just shared, the miracle they had witnessed, had left an indelible mark on their souls, forever altering their understanding of who Jesus was and what it meant to follow him. Centuries have passed since that stormy night on the Sea of Galilee, yet the story of Peter walking on water continues to resonate with people around the world. Why? What is it about this simple story, tucked away in the pages of the Gospels, that continues to captivate our imaginations and challenge our hearts? Perhaps it is because it speaks to something deep within the human spirit, something that yearns for the miraculous, for the possibility of experiencing the impossible. Each of us faces our own water-walking moments, those times when we are called to step out in faith, to venture into the unknown, and to trust in something greater than ourselves. These moments often come when we least expect them, catching us off guard and challenging our comfort zones. They are the times when we must summon the courage to take that first step, even when the path ahead is unclear, to trust in God, even when we don't understand, to lean on our faith when logic and reason fail us. It's in these moments that our true character is revealed and our faith is tested. We may find ourselves standing on the edge of a metaphorical cliff, looking out at a vast and uncertain sea, wondering if we have the strength to take the plunge. But it's precisely in these moments of doubt and uncertainty that we are called to trust in God's plan for us, to believe even when we cannot see. These moments may not involve literal storms or raging seas, but they are no less real, no less challenging. They are the moments when we are asked to forgive the unforgivable, to love the unlovable, and to extend grace to those who may not deserve it. It's in these moments that we are called to rise above our human limitations and to embody the love and compassion that Jesus showed us. But they are no less real, no less challenging. They are the moments when we are asked to forgive the unforgivable, to love the unlovable, to extend a hand of kindness to those who have wronged us. These are the moments that test our resolve and our commitment to living out our faith in a tangible way. They are the moments when we must choose to act with love and compassion, even when it is difficult, to hope when all seems lost. They are the moments when we are called to be the hands and feet of Jesus, to bring light into the darkness and to offer hope to those who are struggling. These moments require us to step out of our comfort zones and to take action, even when it feels risky or uncomfortable. They are the moments when we must trust that God is with us, guiding us and giving us the strength we need to persevere in a world desperately in need of his love and grace. In these moments, we have the opportunity to make a difference, to be a beacon of hope and love in a world that is often filled with darkness and despair. By embracing our own water-walking moments, we can inspire others to do the same, and together we can create a ripple effect of positive change that extends far beyond ourselves. So let us step out in faith, trusting that God will guide us every step of the way, and let us embrace the challenges and opportunities that come our way with courage and grace. Fear is a powerful emotion, one that can paralyze us, keep us stuck in a perpetual cycle of doubt and inaction. It whispers lies into our hearts, telling us that we are not good enough, strong enough, brave enough to step out in faith. It magnifies our weaknesses, distorts our perspective, and robs us of the joy and peace that come from knowing we are children of God, dearly loved and fully accepted. The story of Peter walking on water is, ultimately, a story about courage. It took courage for Peter to step out of the boat, to leave behind the relative safety of his companions and venture out onto the storm-tossed sea. It took courage to trust in Jesus' words, "Come," even when everything in his experience told him it was impossible. And it took courage, perhaps the greatest courage of all, to cry out for help when his faith faltered, to admit his weakness and need for rescue.